San Antonio, Texas, summer of 1841. The faint light of dawn broke over San Antonio, illuminating a grim scene. A child's doll lay half buried in the ashes of a burned-out ranch. 35 horsemen, 20 Mexican citizens, and 15 Texas Rangers halt, check their weapons, and prepare for the dangerous journey ahead. In the past few months, they've lost cattle, horses, their homes burned down, and their loved ones killed. Despite the tense relationship between Texas and Mexico, today they have one common goal: revenge. Who are their enemies, and what made former foes unite? This is a tale of vengeance forged in blood. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next thrilling video. A unified mission. Their goal was clear: reclaim the stolen horses and kill or capture every Comanche in their path. The Texas Rangers, though outnumbered, led the posse. Just 6 years old as a force, they were toughened trackers and killers, joined by sharp-eyed Lipan Apache scouts who followed faint trails southwest from San Antonio. Dust rose behind them as the sun bleached the plains. The Comanche had made central Texas a wasteland. Villages burned, families slaughtered, no one spared, be it Tonkawa, Spanish, Mexicans, or Texians. The journey wasn't quiet. Mexicans whispered prayers, Rangers muttered about ammo and water. Juan Morales, a scarred vaquero, rode near the front, musket in hand, mourning his wife and sons lost to a raid. Beside him, Will Pike, a burly ranger, chewed tobacco, his brother's death still fresh. The Lipan scouts, led by Tahuano, stayed silent, eyes on the hills ahead. The rise of the Comanche Empire. The Comanche weren't always feared. For centuries, they lived on the plains' edges, a nomadic group outmatched by tribes like the Apache and Osage, hunting buffalo on foot. Then came the horse stolen from Spanish camps, or traded a game-changer they mastered with fierce skill, breeding fast ponies for war. By the 1700s, they ruled the plains, an empire built on speed and blood. By 1841, they fought from horseback, arrows flying under full moons, dubbed Comanche moons by terrified settlers. Their raids brought horror, men tortured over fires, women taken as slaves or wives, infants killed with blades or stones. For decades, they defied Spanish, Mexican, and Texian forces, not just raiding, but wiping out all traces of life. The unconquerable frontier San Antonio story began in 1718, when the Spanish planted their flag and dreamed of taming the North. Missions rose from the dust, their bells tolling promises of salvation, but Comanche arrows turned those dreams to ruin. By 1821, Mexico claimed the land after the Treaty of Cordoba, inheriting a wound that refused to heal. Their solution was desperate: invite Anglo settlers to Texas, a human buffer against the raids. It worked until it didn't. Neglected by Mexico City, the settlers rebelled, igniting the Texas Revolution of 1835-1836. Independence came with the Republic's birth, but the Comanche cared little for flags or borders. From the Gulf Coast to the plains of present-day Oklahoma, the young nation stood alone against a foe that struck like a phantom. The Texas Rangers were the Republic's answer, roving cavalry born from necessity, not law. They weren't soldiers in crisp uniforms, but frontiersmen forged by the wild, trackers who could read a trail in the dark, fighters who'd rather die than yield. By 1841, they were the thin line between chaos and survival. The Rough Riders of Texas. The Rangers were a motley breed, most in their 20s, drawn to Texas by tales of blood and glory. They dressed for the land, buckskin leggings caked with dust, wide-brimmed hats shadowing sunburned faces, some draped in serapes taken from fallen foes. Their arsenal was a mix of old and new flintlock rifles, Bowie knives honed to a razor's edge, and the latest Marvel Samuel Colt's 5-shot revolvers, a game-changer against bows and lances. They were more gang than lawmen, prone to drunken brawls in San Antonio's saloons, fists and blades settling scores. They'd killed Mexicans in border skirmishes, hunted rustlers into the hills, and meted out justice with no judge in sight. But the Comanche were their true test. In their early years, half the Rangers fell some tortured, staked out under the blistering sun, their scalps trophies for victorious warriors. Those who lived learned fast, mastering horseback volleys and ambushes in the brush. Among them rode men like Tom Grayson, a lanky Kentuckian with a limp from a rustler's bullet, and Will Pike, whose quick temper matched his quicker draw. They followed a leader who'd become a legend in his own right, Jack Hays. The making of Jack Hays, John Coffee Hays, Jack to his men, was a wiry 24-year-old from Tennessee. His high-pitched voice, a stark contrast to the steel in his gray eyes. Born in 1817 to a military family, his father had ridden with Andrew Jackson against the Creek's Hays, arrived in Texas in 1836. Too late for the Revolution's glory. He turned to surveying, a death wish in Comanche country, sketching borders for a republic that barely held them. Out there, alone with his compass and rifle, he met Chief Flacco of the Lipan Apache. Over crackling campfires, Flacco shared the Comanche's ways, their circling charges, arrows loosed at the gallop's peak, then a swift retreat to strike again. Hays listened, learned, and joined the Rangers, rising fast through sheer grit. The Comanche dubbed him Captain Jack, or Bravo II, much too brave, with bounties on his head to prove it. Off the battlefield, he was mild-mannered, soft-spoken, a man who'd rather mend a saddle than boast. In combat, he was ice, eyes narrowed, voice cutting through the din, every order a lifeline. By 1841, he'd made the Rangers a force the Comanche respected and feared. The trail to Uvalde Canyon, July 1, 1841. Hays led his band Rangers, Mexicans, Lipan Scouts, 80 miles west from San Antonio. The terrain shifting from open scrub to the jagged embrace of Uvalde Canyon. The cliffs loomed like sentinels, their shadows pooling in the ravines below. Tahuano, the Lipan scout, raised a hand, tracks, fresh and deep, leading to a dozen Comanche with the stolen horses. 12 warriors, one woman among them, their camp a scattering of hides and cook fires. Surprise was their edge. Hays signaled the charge. Hooves thundered as the posse descended, dust billowing like a storm. The Comanche scattered into a dense thicket, their horses tethered beyond reach. Hays leapt from his mount mid-gallop, boots slamming into the dirt, and plunged into the brush with Grayson and Pike at his heels. Arrows sang through the air. One punched through Grayson's gut, dropping him with a guttural groan. Another grazed Pike's arm, blood welling as he cursed and stumbled on. A third nicked Hays's finger, a shallow sting he ignored. He dragged Grayson behind a gnarled oak, Pike limping back to the line, then seized a double-barreled shotgun from his saddle and waded back in alone facing bows, tomahawks, and a lone rifle in Comanche hands. A fight to the death. The Comanche charged from the thicket, 15 feet away, brush snapping under their rush. Hays rose from cover, the shotgun roaring as two warriors fell in bloody heaps, their cries cut short. The rest froze, stunned, as he drew his Colt, its cylinders gleaming. He hauled Grayson and Pike to safety, barking orders. Circle the thicket, shoot anything that moves. With a borrowed rifle and fresh ammunition, he dove back into the fray, the air thick with sweat, gun smoke, and the coppery scent of blood. For 3 grueling hours, he hunted them through the tangle, each Comanche assault breaking against his relentless fire. Only 2 remained, a warrior, his face painted with defiance, and the woman, her eyes dark and unreadable. The warrior began his death song, a low, haunting chant that bounced off the canyon walls, its notes a farewell to the life he'd known. He turned to her, voice steady. "Live with honor, they'll take you soon." Arrow knocked, he charged Hays, a final act of fury. Hays fired, the arrow grazed his shoulder, knocking him back into the dirt. The warrior lunged, knife flashing, but Hays's last 4 shots rang out, dropping him in a sprawl of dust and blood. The woman sat silent, hands folded, captured as the horses were rounded up, victory won at a steep price. Aftermath and legacy. The posse returned to San Antonio battered but triumphant, the horses restored to their owners. Grayson survived, though he'd never ride again. Pike nursed his arm and swore vengeance anew. Hays bore his wounds quietly, the sting of arrow and loss a familiar weight. He fought on against Comanche, Mexicans, Apache, Paiute before leaving Texas for San Francisco in the 1850s. There, he served as sheriff, built a fortune in land, and died in 1883 at 66, buried in Oakland beneath a simple stone. His enemies remembered him. Chief Buffalo Hump, a Comanche leader, sent a golden spoon for Hays's son's birth, a rare gesture of respect. The Comanche reigned over the plains until the 1870s, when U.S. Army campaigns and reservations finally broke their empire. Texas's tale raw, blood-soaked, unyielding lives and stories like this, too vast and jagged for one telling.